the guy who was in charge of the January 6th investigation is like, oh, really, I don't recall much about the pipe bomb. How's that possible? To Chris Wray from Barry Loudermilk, chairman on the Subcommittee of Oversight. I write to you in my capacity of chairman of the Committee on the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, which has jurisdiction over the safety and security of the United States Capitol. I respectfully request that the FBI respond in writing to the following questions pursuant to the subcommittee's oversight responsibilities over the security of the U.S. Capitol complex. Your written responses to the following questions will assist the subcommittee in conducting a review of the events on January 5th and January 6th, 2021, in conducting appropriate oversight of the investigation of those days, and in ensuring the safety and security of the United States Capitol complex. In June 2023, during a transcribed interview with the House Committee on Judiciary, Mr. Stephen D'Antonio, former assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, brief pause here, these are my words, not them, also the guy that was in charge of the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping hoax, testified that the FBI received, quote, corrupted data from one of the major cell carriers related to the FBI's investigation into the individual who planted 2 explosives near the DNC and Republican National Committee on the night of January 5th, 2021. Mr. D'Antonio also suggested the corrupted data may have contained the identity of the suspect. He testified, we did a complete geofence. We have complete data. Not complete, because there's some data that was corrupted by one of the providers. Not purposely by them, right? It's just unusual circumstances that we have corrupt data from one of the providers. I'm not sure. I can't remember now which one. But for that day, which is awful because we don't have that information to search. So it could have been that provider. Yeah, with our luck, with the investigation, it probably was, right? Ha 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 ha. Ah! Ha 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 ha! Ah! Woo! Our FBI, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep going here, and then I'll give my thoughts. Continuing with Loudermilk. As you may know, the subcommittee is conducting an investigation into the events of January 5th and January 6th, 2021. The subcommittee is not asking the FBI to comment on any specific suspect or the means, methods, or sources of the FBI's investigation. Rather, the subcommittee requires the FBI provide a response to Mr. D'Antonio's claim that the FBI received corrupted data. Your written responses to the following questions will assist the subcommittee in conducting a review of the events of those days and in ensuring the safety and security of the United States complex. I therefore ask you to respond to writing the following questions. 1. Did the FBI receive corrupted or otherwise unusable cellular data returns from one or more of the cell carriers in connection with the investigation into the individual who planted 2 explosive devices at the RNC and DNC on January 5th? If so, which carriers provided the corrupted data to the FBI? If so, how was the cellular data transferred to the FBI? Dropbox, hard drive, etc. If so, was any third party involved with the transmitting of that data? Second, if the FBI received corrupted data or otherwise unusable cellular data returns, did the FBI inform the cell carriers that provided corrupted data that the data they provided was corrupted or otherwise unusable? If so, did the FBI make any attempt to obtain an uncorrupted or otherwise usable version of the data? Please describe in writing the efforts made to retrieve an uncorrupted version of the data. Please respond by October 30th. Now, from Zero Hedge, the article. Last year, the FBI official who oversaw the initial investigation and who planted the pipe bombs told Congress cell phone data probe was corrupted. We have complete data. We already read that. It turns out D'Antonio, who oversaw the Gretchen Whitmer kidnap case before being transferred to D.C., may have perjured himself. The House Oversight Committee said Thursday it's found no evidence to support the claims from D'Antonio, who is now retired. Chairman Loudermilk has learned that no cell carrier provided corrupted data to the FBI in connection with the pipe bomb investigation, despite claims, the subcommittee said on X. Loudermilk provided more details about his finding. In June 2023, the former assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, D'Antonio, who oversaw the pipe bomb investigation, said that the FBI received corrupted data from one of the cell carriers that it most likely contained the identity of the pipe bomber. Given the significance of this information, my subcommittee sent letters to 3 major cell carriers, asking them to respond to Mr. D'Antonio's claim of corrupted data. Every major cell carrier responded that and confirmed they did not provide the FBI corrupted data. Additionally, every major cell carrier confirmed that they were never notified that the FBI had any issues accessing the data. This is contradictory to testimony, raises some serious questions about the status of the investigation into the pipe bomber and why the case remains unsolved nearly 4 years later. So let's be clear as what's going on here. I said from the outset of the January 6th committee that it was a farce, that it was a show, that it was designed to just attack Trump and his supporters politically. We already had the FBI investigating January 6th, so why did we need this committee that was going to be produced by a television producer, that was going to be on prime time? Because it was all a show trial. It was all designed to influence the American people. That's what was going on. We know that there's significant problems. Just recently we learned that, what was the name of the woman that testified that Trump grabbed the wheel of the beast and tried to take it back to lead the revolution. And it was all bullshit. They hid sort of the answers to the people that responded to that. It was like, no, that didn't happen. Then it turns out that woman was connected with Kathy Hutchinson. She was connected with Liz Cheney without her lawyer there, which has ethical violations with that. But what I said was, actually, there were questions about January 6th that I wouldn't mind seeing a committee answer. One, how many agencies had people that were on the ground there that day? Why do we still not have answers to when we have the guy who was the person who was tasked with defending the Capitol Chief Sund? Why, when he says how much of a failure this was, that he was denied access to the National Guard before January 6th, that he was denied during January 6th, that he has phone records that show that he kept requesting and was denied, and yet the person that's Sergeant at Arms that kept denying him claims that, nope, he never denied them. Someone's lying. That's direct contradictory testimony under oath. Why do we have no answers to this? Those sorts of questions, why was there a failure in sharing of intelligence? Those questions deserve to be answered. If it's not just about going after Trump and one political party, these are the sorts of questions that we need answers. No answer. And then, of course, the most serious thing that occurred January 6th, other than the death of Ashley Babbitt, the most serious thing that occurred was the planting of pipe bombs. Let me mince no words about this. Whoever planted those pipe bombs deserves to be held to the full account of the law. And I'm talking decades in prison. I don't give a shit if that's a Trump supporter, if it's a Trump hater, if it's an Antifa member, if it's a congressman, if it was someone from Trump's team. I don't care. That is deadly serious. Deadly serious. A crowd turning into a riot outside the Capitol, there's serious nature in that. But given what we saw leading up to that with the riots that occurred all summer, it wasn't really that unusual. The people that engaged in violence deserve to be held accountable. But it's clearly being blown out of proportion. But what's not being blown out of proportion and what makes January 6th unique is those pipe bombs. That's different. We didn't see that. And I'm dead serious here. This is for my Democrat friends that might be watching. To me, that's one of the key differences for why January 6th was more serious than most of the average left-wing riots that we saw leading up to that. Now, in totality, the left-wing riots were worse because the magnitude of how much property was damaged, how many people were hurt, how many times it happened was much worse. But as far as specific events, pipe bombs being planted near our congresspeople is serious. And it deserves investigated, and we deserve to have answers. Why don't we have any? Why not? Now, I've covered this several times. Revolver News has been great on this. We have the visual clips where we could see that the Secret Service is planted right next to the pipe bomb. An off-duty police officer walks up to them, casually talks to them, apparently tells them about the pipe bomb. They continue, despite the fact that they think there's a bomb under the bench, apparently, to allow civilians to walk right by it, just taking their time. And then, of course, what I thought was one of the most damning revelations was Benny Thompson, who was the head of the January 6th committee. He testifies in front of Congress, and Thomas Massie starts asking him questions about the pipe bomb, about this video, that aforementioned video I just talked about, and a bunch of other questions. That's public knowledge. Benny Thompson, the head of the January 6th committee, knew absolutely nothing about the pipe bomb. Oh, I don't know. Now, they could tell you specific details of Kathy Hutchinson saying that Trump said to turn the beast around and all of this bullshit. But the guy who was in charge of the January 6th investigation is like, oh, I don't recall much about the pipe bomb. How's that possible? When it was clearly the most serious thing that occurred that day. And then we have all of the people that they found from January 6th, just from little pictures, from using cell phone carrier data. All these pictures that are put on social media, they're arresting blue-haired grandmas that didn't do anything violent. Still to this day, 4 years later, they're charging people that were at the Capitol on January 6th. And yet we have a picture of the pipe bomber holding a cell phone, and they're like, nothing we could do about that. We have no clue. So when asked about it, the agent in charge, Steve D'Antona, who I again remind you, was the agent in charge of the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping, where they entrapped a bunch of people and created this plot to kidnap Whitmer. But the FBI would never do that, right? They would never have people, they wouldn't fake plan a bomb. They wouldn't have people in the crowd to agitate people and stir up violence. They wouldn't do that. Oh, but the agent in charge did do that with the Gretchen Whitmer case just months prior. Anyways, he's like, because people were asking, like, okay, well, we have a picture at least. Do we have more pictures? Were there more cameras on the road? This person who planted the pipe bomb is literally walking down the street. How many of these buildings have cameras? You only have this one picture? And by the way, they're holding a cell phone. If you know the time and the place that this picture was taken and you have them holding a cell phone, then surely can't you use geofencing to get a good idea? And the agent goes, oh, yeah, we tried that. But unfortunately, you're not going to believe this. But the carrier that, he was probably on with that cell phone, unfortunately, they sent us corrupted data. So what can we do? I know it sounds silly. Knowing our luck, right? That's what Steve D'Antona says. Turns out that was a lie. Looks like that was a lie. Cell phone carrier said, no, we never sent corrupted data. Whoops. Now, I'm calling on a new January 6th committee. Let's do it. And this time, let's answer those two questions. Why was security inadequate? Why was there a failure of intelligence? Why was there lies between people to Stephen's son when he asked to deploy the National Guard? How many Fed agents were involved in the crowd? And what's going on with the pipe bomber? Surely, all of the people, the Democrats, all of the streamers that I've debated that are so serious about January 6th, in fact, that's the majority of what they talked about going into the 2024 election, surely they'll join me in calling for answers to these questions. Right? Because January 6th was such a dark day, we need to get to the bottom of this, right? And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If the end result is it leads to some Trump supporter being arrested, so be it. We have a right as the American people to know this event that's been told to us, and some people said it's the worst event since Pearl Harbor that occurred in our country. Well, the most significant, dangerous thing that occurred that day, we have the right to get to the bottom of it. So I assume all of my Democrat friends will be speaking up saying, of course, yes. Also, I'm sick and tired of any time they want to entrap Trump and investigate him and his associates for any sorts of crimes, they end up nailing them for misleading statements or saying things that are untruthful to investigators. And yet, when we see a litany of times that happens from people that are outside of Trump's scope, they get away with it scot-free. If it's true that Steve D'Antona perjured himself, he needs to go to jail. Period. He should not be above the law just because he was an FBI agent. To the contrary, he should be more accountable to it. And until people go to jail for these sorts of things, it will continue in perpetuity.